further ado, let's go. Let's begin. Their adventure with the labeler and the butler. They hadn't gone very far when the Saucepan Man began to yawn.
I'm so sleepy,
he said, and it really must be very late. What about getting underneath the bush and going to sleep till morning? The Brownies thought it would be a very good idea, so they all cuddled together beneath the bush and went fast asleep till the sun rose. Wake up, cried Hop. It's time to go on our way to Witchland and rescue the Princess Perenelle. The others woke with a jump. They washed in a nearby stream, picked some blackberries for breakfast, and went on towards the signpost. Suddenly there came over them a great black shadow. Oh, oh, yelled the Saucepan Man in terror. It's the dragon bird again. Run, run! The Brownies ran helter-skelter to some bushes. The black shadow grew darker. See! The dragon bird landed on the ground by them with a thud. Where is my master? Where is my master? It cried in a croaking voice. We have said a magic word and made him vanish forever, shouted Hop bravely. And if you don't leave us alone, we'll make you vanish too, you horrid dragon bird. No, no, shrieked the bird. Oh, most powerful wizard, let me serve you, now that my master, the golden dwarf, is gone. Let me be your slave. Gracious, said Hop. Here is a to-do. Goodness knows we don't want a dragon bird always at our heels, begging to be our slave. The Saucepan Man, who seemed to hear the dragon bird quite well, crawled out from under his bush and walked up to it. Go away, he said. If we want you, we will call you. Don't come bothering us now, or we will make you disappear, as we did your master. I will come if ever you want me, croaked the bird sadly. I will await this time. It spread its wings, rose into the air, and in a few moments was out of sight. That was rather a nasty shock, said Hop. I quite thought it would take us all away again. Ugh, I hope we never see the ugly thing anymore. So do we, said Skip and Jump. Come on, said the Saucepan Man, and once more the four set off to the signpost. At last they reached it, and set off down the road towards Witchland. Don't you bother to come with us, said Hop to the Saucepan Man. We can find our way quite well now. No, I can't hear any bell, said the Saucepan Man, standing still to listen. You must be mistaken. Oh dear, you are deaf, sighed Hop, and quickly wrote down what he had said. Oh, oh, laughed the Saucepan Man. So you think you could find the way by yourself, do you? You just follow me, and you'll soon see you couldn't find the way alone. No sooner had he said that than the four travellers came to a river. Over it stretched a graceful bridge, but, to the Brownies' surprise, no sooner did they get near it than the end nearest to them raised itself and and stayed there. How annoying of it, said Hop in surprise. What does it do that for? We can't get across. Don't worry, said the Saucepan Man. He looked about in the ground and picked up 4 tiny blue stones. He threw them into the river one after the other, saying a magic word at each of them. At once the end of the bridge came down again and rested on the bank. There you are, said the Saucepan Man. Now we can cross. The brownies ran across quickly just in case the bridge took it into its head to do anything funny again. They hadn't gone very far beyond the bridge before they came to a forest so dark and so thick that the brownies felt sure they couldn't possibly get through it. They tried this way and that way, but it was all no good. They could find no path. The Saucepan Man watched them laughing. Then he quickly ran to a big white stone lying nearby and lifted it up. Underneath it lay a coil of silver string. The Saucepan Man took it up and tied one end to a tree trunk. Then he said a magic rhyme, and immediately, to the brownies' tremendous surprise, the string uncoiled and went sliding away all by itself into the dark forest. Follow it quickly, cried the Saucepan Man, and ran into the forest. The silver string gleamed through the bushes and trees, and led the brownies by a hidden narrow path through the dark forest. On and on they went, following the silver thread, until at last they reached the end of the trees and stood in sunshine once more. I don't know what we should do without you, shouted Hop to the Saucepan Man. We should never have known the way. Who's making hay? Asked the Saucepan Man, staring all around about him. No one, shouted Hop, and wrote in his notebook to tell the Saucepan Man what he was talking about. Presently they set off again. In the distance they saw an enormous hill. As they grew nearer, the brownies saw it gleaming and glittering, as if it were made of ice. Glass, explained the Saucepan Man, as they drew near. I wonder how we get up that, said Hop. The brownies tried to climb it, but as fast as they tried, down they came, kaplunk, to the bottom. Tell us how to get up, Hop wrote in his notebook to the Saucepan Man. Their guide smiled. He took 6 paces to the left, picked up a yellow stone, and aimed it carefully at a notch in the glass hill. Directly it struck the notch, a door slid open in the hillside, and the brownies saw a passage leading through the glass hill. It's easier to go through than up, smiled the Saucepan Man, leading the way. The passage was very queer, for it wound about like a river. The sides, top and bottom were all glass and reflected everything so perfectly that the brownies kept walking into the walls and bumping their noses. They were very glad when at last they came out at the other side of the hill. In front of them towered a great gate, and on it was written in iron lettering, Witchland. At last, said Hop, now we really have arrived. Here, I must leave you, said the Saucepan Man sadly. I cannot go in, and I don't know how you'll get in either. But you are so clever that maybe you'll find a way. Now I must go back and make some more saucepans to sell. Thank you for bringing us here, wrote Hop in his notebook. We are sorry to say goodbye. So am I, said the Saucepan Man, with tears in his eyes. Thank you very much for all your goodness to me in rescuing me from the Golden Dwarf. Don't mention it, said the brownies politely. Then the Saucepan Man shook his head, shook hands solemnly with them all, and said, Goodbye. Goodbye, goodbye, called the brownies as he went towards the glass hill. He turned round. What sort of pie? He called in surprise. Oh, buttons and buttercups, isn't he deaf? Said Hop, and waved to the Saucepan Man to go on. They watched him disappear into the hill. Nice old Saucepan Man, said Skip. Wish he was coming to Witchland with us. I wonder how we get in, said Hop, looking at the tall gates. Don't know, said Skip. We'd better wait until someone goes in or out, and then try and slip in as the gates open. Let's sit down under this major There's a procession of something coming. We could easily slip in with that when the gates open for it, couldn't we? Yes, said Jump. Let's wait quietly and then try our luck. The procession came nearer. At the same time there came somebody from the opposite direction. Skip looked to see who it was. It's a little brown mouse, he said in surprise. I wonder what a mouse is doing here. He seems to be carrying a heavy sack. Look. The others looked. The little mouse was certainly carrying a sack that seemed far too heavy for him. The procession and the mouse reached the place where the brownies sat, just at the same moment. The procession was made up of all sorts of queer people carrying precious rugs, caskets, and plants. Going in to sell them to the witches, I suppose, whispered Hop. Look, the gates are opening. Get ready to slip inside. But just at that moment, the mouse gave a shrill squeak. The brownies looked round. They saw that the sack had fallen off the little mouse's back, and that hundreds of green labels were flying about all over the place. Oh, what shall I do? Squeaked the mouse. I shall be late. I know I shall. The brownies jumped up. Let us help you to pick them up, said Hop. It won't take a minute. We must hurry, though, said Skip, or we shan't get in while the gates are open. The brownies quickly picked up the labels and filled the mouse's sack again. He was very grateful indeed. Don't mention it, said Hop, and turned to the gates of Witchland. Clang! They shut, for the last of the queer procession had gone in. Oh my, said Hop in dismay. Now we've lost our chance. The little mouse looked very upset. Did you want to get in? He said. Yes, said Hop, but it doesn't matter. We'll wait till someone else wants to go in again and the gates open. I wish we could find something to eat, sighed Skip. I'm getting so dreadfully hungry. Won't you come home with me for a while? Asked the mouse. I'm sure my master, the labeller, would give you something to eat, as you've been so kind in helping me. Well, thank you very much, said Hop, but what a funny name your master has, the labeller. Whatever does he label? Oh, whenever people are cross patches, or spiteful, or horrid in any way, said the mouse, they are taken to the labeller, and he puts a label round their neck that they can't get off. Then everyone knows what sort of person they are, and if they're very nasty, people avoid them as much as they can. That seems a very good idea, said Skip, as the brownies followed the mouse down the pathway. Do they have to wear the labels all their lives? That depends, said the mouse, trotting down a hole in a bank. You see, directly they stop being horrid, their label flies off and goes back to the labeller. If they go on being horrid for the rest of their lives, the label never flies off. I say, the labeller won't label us, will he? Asked Hop anxiously, as they all trotted down the hole after the mouse. Oh no, said the mouse. You're not horrid at all. You're very nice. The passage was lighted with orange lights, and beneath every light was a little door. Each door had a nameplate on, and the brownies read them all as they passed by. Here's a funny one, said Hop. The Butler. I wonder what he bottles. Oh, and here's the labeller, said Skip. The mouse is going inside. They followed him, and found themselves in a cosy little room where a bright fire was burning. By a little table sat a fat old man with spectacles on. He was printing names on labels in very small and beautiful letters. Come in, all of you, he said in a kind voice. I don't know who you are, but you're very welcome. The brownies said good day politely and told him who they were. Where do you come from? He said. Brownie Town, they answered. Well, what are you doing here then? Asked the labeller in surprise. The brownies went very red. Nobody spoke for a minute, and then Hop told the labeller all about the naughty trick they had played at the king's party, and how the little princess had been spirited away. Dear, 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 said the labeller, that was a very silly thing to do. Perhaps I'd better label you all silly, had I? No, thank you, said the brownies quickly. We aren't silly anymore. We're very sorry for what we did, and we're trying to find the princess and rescue her. The labeler got out some buns and told the little mouse to make some milk hot. Sit down, he said, and have something to eat. I'm sure it was very kind of you to help my little servant to pick up all the labels he had dropped. The brownies each took a bun and said, Thank you. And when are you going back to Brownie Town? Asked the labeler. When you've rescued the princess? No, answered Hop sadly. We can't. The king said we weren't to go back until we had found our goodness. And people can't find their goodness, of course. So we're afraid we'll never be able to go back. But of course you can find your goodness if you've got any, said the labeler. Why, my brother, the butler, can easily give you it if you've any that belongs to you. He bottles up all the goodness in the world, you know, and then, when anyone starts being peevish and grumpy, he seeks out his messenger, my mouse's cousin, to drop a little out of one of the bottles of goodness into something the peevish person is drinking. Then the grumpy person begins to smile again, and thinks the world is a jolly old place after all. Dear me, said the brownies, in the greatest surprise. Is that really so? And do you mean to say that if we've done any good deeds, for instance, the butler has got them boiled down and bottled up in a jar? Asked Skip in excitement. Bottles that we can take away? Oh, rather, said the labeler, taking another bun, with your own names on and everything. Well, if that isn't splendid, cried Hop in delight. Could we go and see if the butler's got any of our goodness bottled up? Finish your milk and buns first, said the labeler, then you can go. The brownies finished their food and jumped up. Well, goodbye, said the labeler, shaking hands with them. The mouse will show you the right door. Good luck to you. Off went the brownies in a great state of excitement. They almost trod on the mouse's tail, they were in such a hurry. They came to the little door marked the Butler. They knocked. Come in, said a voice. They went in and saw a room like the labeler's. It was full of thousands of bottles standing on hundreds of shelves. The butler was very like the labeler, except that he was a good deal fatter. What can I do for you? He asked. Please, said Hop in a shaky voice, please, have you any goodness of ours bottled up? Who are you? Asked the potter kindly. Hop, Skip, and Jump, 3 brownies from Brownie Town, answered Hop. Let me see, said the butler, putting a second pair of spectacles on. He walked up to a shelf labelled Brownies and began peering at the bottles. The brownies waited impatiently. Oh, if only a bottle of their goodness could be found, they could go back to Brownie Town. Ha! Here we are, said the butler. At last, pouncing on the little yellow bottle, it had something written on the label that was stuck round it. The butler read it out. This goodness belongs to Hop, Skip, and Jump. It was made when they rescued a mermaid from the castle of the Red Goblin. Oh, fancy, said Jump. I am glad we rescued Golden Hair. Dear me, here's another bottle too, said the butler. He picked up a little green bottle and read out the label. This goodness belongs to Hop, Skip, and Jump. It was made when they helped a little girl to escape from the land of clever people. Buttons and buttercups, said Hop. That's 2 bottles to take back. And here's a 3rd bottle, suddenly, said the butler, and picked up a red bottle. This goodness belongs to Hop, Skip, and Jump. It was made when they rescued the Saucepan Man from the Golden Dwarf, read the butler. How perfectly lovely, cried Jump. That's a bottle each. How glad I am that we did help those people when we had the chance. Here you are, said the butler, handing them the bottles. Take care of them, for they'll take you safely back to Brownie Town. Now goodbye. I'm glad to have been of some good use to you. Goodbye. into Witchland, he said. I'd be pleased to help you any way I could. Hop hugged the kind little mouse. Please show us, he said. He put his bottle into his pocket and followed the mouse up the passage. The mouse wound down passage after passage and at last went up a very steep one. This leads into a witch's house, he whispered. There's a big mouse hole that comes out into the cellar. You can squeeze through it. Thank you, said Hop. Tell me, little mouse, what witch lives here? Witch Green Eyes, whispered the mouse. Witch Green Eyes, said the brownies in surprise. Just the very witch we want. They said goodbye to the mouse, squeezed through the hole, and found themselves in a dark, smelly cellar. Well, said Hop, now we'll soon see if we can't rescue Princess Perenelle. Their adventure in the house of Witch Green Eyes. Everywhere was dark, and the brownies had to feel their way carefully in case they stumbled over anything. Suddenly they heard footsteps and saw the light of a candle coming down some steps at one end of the cellar. It's the witch herself, whispered Hop in great excitement. Keep still, whatever you do. Excuse me. Sure enough, it was Witch Green Eyes. The brownies could see her eyes gleaming green like a cat's as she walked down the cellar. Now, where did I put that barrel of gold? She muttered. Surely it was somewhere in this corner. She was coming nearer to the brownies. They shrank back into the shadows in fear. I must find that gold, they heard her mutter. Now where is it? Ah, here it is. She stopped just by them and began jingling money in a barrel. The brownies kept as still as still. The witch began counting out the money. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The brownies never made a sound. They held their breath. And hoped that the witch would soon go. After she had counted out 100 pieces of gold, she picked up a candle, took the bag of money, and turned to go. She shuffled away across the cellar floor, muttering to herself. The brownies began to breathe freely again. For they felt they were safe. But just at that moment, something happened. Skip put his hands over his mouth and nose and held them tight. Whatever is the matter, whispered Hop. I'm going to sneeze, stuttered Skip. Now the more you try to stop a sneeze. The bigger it is when it does come. And when Skip's sneeze came, it was enormous. A tissue. He sneezed and nearly jerked his head off. The witch dropped her bag of money in amazement and held her candle up to see whatever was in the cellar. Quick, the mouse hole, whispered Hop, and the brownies ran to where they thought it was. But oh dear me, they couldn't find it anywhere. Not anywhere at all. The witch came down the cellar again, holding her candle up high and looking as fierce as ever a witch could look. Ho ho, she said as she saw the scurrying brownies. And what are you doing down here? I should like to know. Nothing much, answered Hop, wondering wherever the mouse hole was. Just looking for spiders, you know. Looking for my gold, more likely, growled the witch. You wouldn't be down in my cellar for spiders, you little squiggling brownies. You come along upstairs, and I'll show you a better place for spiders." She took hold of them and pushed them in front of her. "Up the steps you go," she cried, her green eyes looking more like a cat's than ever. The frightened brownies rushed up the steps and found themselves in a large kitchen. "Now," said the witch with a nasty sort of smile, "you'll find plenty of cobwebs about my kitchen. Just go and look for spiders behind them, whilst I ask my black cat to tell me exactly what you were in the cellar for. It's not much good asking you, I can see, as you seem to think of nothing but spiders." The poor little brownies had to go and poke about in the thick cobwebs that hung in the dark corner of the kitchen. They couldn't bear it, for the spiders were large and very, very creepy-crawly. The witch called her black cat. "Cinder boy, Cinder boy," she cried. In walked an enormous cat with eyes as green as the witch's. "Sit in the magic circle, Cinder boy," said the witch, "and tell me the answers to my questions." The cat went and sat down in the middle of a church chalk. The cat went and sat down in the middle of a circle chalked on the kitchen floor. It closed its eyes and swished its tail about. "Oh, Cinder boy," cried the witch, waving her stick over him, "tell me, I pray you, what has brought these 3 brownies here?" "They come to rescue the Princess Perenelle," replied the cat in a deep, purring voice. "Nasty old telltale," whispered Hop to Skip, "look out for that spider, it's crawling up your leg." "Ho, ho," laughed the witch, "to rescue the Princess Perenelle, that's a great joke indeed. Now tell me, Cinder boy, does anyone in Fairyland know they have come here?" "No one knows," answered Cinder boy. "No one will ever know if you keep them here forever." "I don't like that cat," said Skip. "He knows a lot too much for a cat." "Ha, ha, ha, oh," laughed the witch again. "Thank you, Cinder boy. Now I know what to do with these horrid little brownies. I'll put them in the high tower with the Princess Perenelle, and I won't let them go till they have made her do what I want." She turned to the brownies. "Come," she said, "I will take you to the princess you want to rescue. I will chain you up with her, and then you shall see whether it is an easy matter or not to come to Witchland and rescue a princess held by witch green eyes." She hustled them out of the room to where a spiral staircase ran up and up and up. The brownies climbed it and thought surely it would never come to an end. But at last, after Hopper counted 2,684 steps, he saw a low door in front of him, heavily bolted, locked, and padlocked. The witch unlocked and unbolted the door and pushed the brownies inside. There they saw a sight that made their hearts leap for joy, for the little Princess Perenelle was in the room, sitting at a window, looking longingly out. She turned as they came in, and the brownies saw that golden chains were round her legs and bound her to a staple in the wall. It made them feel very angry and very sad at the same time. "Here you are," said the witch. "Here's the princess you came to rescue. Now just you make her do what I want her to do, and I'll set you free. If not, I'll keep you here for the rest of your lives." She quickly slipped a chain round the legs of each brownie so that they were bound to the wall like the princess. Then she gave a wicked chuckle and went out of the door. They heard her locking and bolting it. "Hello," said the brownies to the surprised princess. "Have you really come to rescue me?" asked Perenelle eagerly. "We came to Witchland to try," said Hop, "but the old witch caught us too soon." "Oh dear," said the princess sadly, "I wonder if I'll ever be rescued. I've been here such a long time. You won't try to make me do what the nasty old witch wants, will you?" "What does she want you to do?" asked the brownies. "She keeps telling me I must marry the old wizard who lives next door to her," sighed Perenelle. "He'll give her 1,000 bags of gold if I do marry him." "Good gracious," cried Hop, as angry as could be. "How dare she ask you to do such a thing? We certainly must rescue you." "But how?" asked the little princess. I don't think anyone could escape from this high tower. Besides, we're chained up, said Hop mournfully. Jump went to the window and looked out. They were certainly in a very, very high tower. The windows were barred too. The door was locked and bolted, and the prisoners were chained. It seemed hopeless. They would just have to stop there. For always. Hop went carefully round the room with his chain clanking round his leg and felt the walls and the door. They were all as solid as could be. The window, too, was far too high for anyone to hear them calling. All Witchland lay spread out below like a map. The brownies sat up on the floor in despair. Tell me how you came here, said the princess. I've been so dull here all by myself, and I'd like to hear your adventures. So the brownies began to tell them. They began at the beginning and told of the cottage without a door, the castle of the Red Goblin, the land of the giants, and the clever people, and the gigglers. Then they told her of Toadstool Town and their adventure on the Green Railway. Perenelle loved it all. Go on, she said. Tell me more. So they told her of the Saucepan Man and how they had rescued him from the dragon bird and the golden dwarf. And, said Hop, we got an awful fright as we were going along the day after we had reached him, because the dragon bird came again. And, said Hop, we got an awful fright as we were going along the day after we had rescued him, because the dragon bird came again. Again, cried the princess in horror. Did it carry any of you away? No, it wanted its master, explained Hop. And when it couldn't find him, it said it would be our slave and come whenever we wanted it, if only we'd call. Well, said the princess, why don't you call the old dragon bird? It might help us, mightn't it? Buttons and buttercups, squeaked Hop in excitement. Oh, buttons and buttercups, fancy us not thinking of that. Oh, Princess Perenelle, what a good thing you thought of it. Of course we'll call the good old dragon bird. It might get us help, even if it couldn't help us itself. The brownies were tremendously excited, and so was the princess. Hop went to the window and called out as loudly as he could. Dragon bird, come to your new masters. We need you. They waited. Nothing happened. No sound of rushing wings came. Everyone felt very disappointed. Then Skip looked out of the window again. He gave a cry of delight. I believe the dragon bird is coming, he called. Look, far away, ever so high up in the air. Hop looked. He saw a tiny black speck far away. I'll call it again, he said, and once more he cried out to the dragon bird to come. The speck grew larger and larger. Then, see, the dragon bird swooped down from the sky and landed with a thud on the windowsill. Masters, I come, it croaked. What can I do for you? Listen, dragon bird, said Hop excitedly. We are prisoners here. Can you find some way of saving us? Let me come into the room with you, said the bird. I can talk with you better then. Quick, crack, quick, crack. It nipped each bar at the window with its strong beak and broke them off one by one. Then the window cleared of bars. The dragon bird hopped through the opening and stood on the table. What a peculiar-looking bird, said the princess, not at all afraid of the enormous creature. She went up to it and patted it. The dragon bird shivered all over with delight. Little lady, it croaked, you are the first person who has ever patted me. I will do anything to rescue you and your friends. Well, you can rescue us easily enough, said the princess, patting the bird again. Do you think you can manage to carry us away on your back? I don't know, said the dragon bird doubtfully. There's 4 of you. I've never carried more than one before. I'm not an omnibus, you know. No, you're an aeroplane, said Hop. Come on, dragon bird. Let us tie ourselves onto your back and go. The old witch may be back at any moment. The princess patted the bird again. It was so pleased that it gave a crow of delight. Goodness gracious, said Hop into horror. What an awful noise, dragon bird. You'll have the witch here in no time if you do that. What about our chains? Asked Skip. How can we get rid of those? The bird leant forward and took Perenelle's chains in his beak. Crack, crack. It bit them in two. My, cried Jump, what a help you are, to be sure. Then the dragon bird had bit all of the brownies' chains in two, and they were all once more free. Now go to the windowsill, said Hop, trying to push the bird off the table, and we'll get on your back one by one. The bird hopped over to the window. You needn't tie yourselves on my back, he croaked. I will make 4 strong feathers. Stand upright, and you can hold on to those. Perenelle stood on a chair, climbed up onto the bird's back, took hold of a fine, strong feather, and settled herself comfortably. The others followed. Have we got everything? Asked Hop, looking behind. Our bottles of goodness are in our pockets, aren't they? Yes, said Skip joyously. Oh, isn't it grand, Hop? We've got the princess safe, and we've got the bottles of goodness too, so that soon we'll be in our own dear little cottage once more. Hold tight, said the bird suddenly. Everyone held tightly to their feathers. Then off they went into the air, far above the spires and towers of Witchland, carried strongly enough along on the big broad back of the dragon bird. It was fine. The bird flapped its wings steadily, and the air rushed whistling by their ears. Witchland was left far behind, and the glass hill. They were going very fast indeed, and didn't they enjoy it? They had been flying around steadily for some time when Hop happened to look behind them. Witchland could hardly be seen. It was just a blur in the distance. But out of that blur Hop suddenly saw a little black spot come. He strained his eyes to see what it was. Look, Skip, he said, pointing behind. Can you make out what that is? Is it another bird, or what is it? Skip looked, and so did Perenelle and Jump, but none of them could make out what it was. We shall soon see, said Hop. It's catching us up. I expect it is a bird of some sort. Then it won't catch us up, croaked the dragon bird. I fly faster than any bird living. Well, but it is catching us up, said Hop, as the black spot grew larger. The dragon bird looked around to see this fast-flying bird. Then he gave such a jump and such a cry of alarm that his 4 passengers were very nearly jolted off. Hop just saved Skip by catching hold on one of his legs and pulling him safely up again. Don't do that, said Hop to the dragon bird, very sincerely. Don't do that, said Hop to the dragon bird very severely, or at any rate be polite enough to tell us when you're going to do it. I couldn't help it, croaked the dragon bird. Do you know what that black speck following us is? No, what? Asked everybody. It's old Witch Green Eyes on a magic carpet, panted the bird. She must have missed you and come after you. Oh, quick, 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 cried the brownies in fright. Fly your fastest, dragon bird. Quick, quick. The dragon bird flapped its wings even faster and tore through the air so swiftly that Perenelle's hair shot out straight behind her. Behind them came that horrid black speck, getting bigger and bigger every minute that passed. We can't be very far away from Fairyland, shouted Hop. We must have gone miles and miles already. Go on, brave dragon bird. On they went, and on, but every time they looked behind they shivered, for the black speck was so much larger. At last they could see quite plainly that it was a witch sitting on a flat magic carpet that raced through the air in a most marvellous way. Oh, buttons and buttercups, groaned Hop in despair. Fancy to be so near Fairyland, and yet to be so near being captured too. Go on, dragon bird, keep it up. I can't go on much longer, panted the bird. I'm so tired, and you're all so heavy. He ran the last words together, for he was very nearly breathless. The brownies could feel his heart breaking bump, his heart beating bump, bump, waters of fairyland. We're nearly there. We're nearly there. Go on, dear old dragon bird. The bird's wings were flapping more slowly, but he put on an extra spurt when he heard the good news. Behind them, closer and closer, came to the old witch Green Eyes on her carpet. She was so excited that she stood up, and her hair flew behind her in the wind like long black snakes. I'll catch you, I'll catch you, I'll catch you, she shouted. The brownies could just hear her voice, and they shivered. Nearer and nearer she came, and nearer came Fairyland. I can't fly any more, gasped the bird suddenly, and began to drop downwards. Go on, shouted Hop. You can. Look, there's the walls of Fairyland. You've only got to fly over them, and you're safe. The birds made for the walls, tried to fly over them, and just missed them. It sank to the ground just outside Fairyland, and our light sank to the ground. Whilst its 4 passengers scrambled off its back in dismay, the princess covered her eyes as she saw the witch rapidly coming down to them on her magic carpet. She was brave enough not to cry, but she felt very like it indeed. We'll fight for you, said Hop, putting his arm round her. Don't be afraid. Bump! The witch landed just in front of them, jumped off her carpet, and ran over to them. Ho, ho, she laughed. So I've caught you after all. The brownies looked at her in despair. Keep away from the princess, shouted Hop bravely, or we'll fight you. Pooh! You haven't got anything to fight with, said the witch, grabbing at the princess. Oh, haven't we? Cried Hop, and took out his bottle of goodness. Well, we'll whack you with these bottles of goodness if you dare to touch the princess. The witch turned from the frightened princess and stared at Hop in amazement. Bottles of goodness, she cried. Where did you get those from? The Butler, of course, said Hop, swinging his bottle round as if to hit the witch. Don't do that, you might break it, cried the witch. Goodness is one of the most precious things in the world, and witches can hardly ever get hold of any. Give it to me. Give it to you, said Hop. I just think not. What would you do with a bottle of goodness? I'd like to know. I could make a wonderful spell, said the witch. Oh, give it to me, I beg of you. We can't get into Fairyland if we give you our goodness, answered Hop. So we're going to keep it. Then I shall keep the princess, shouted the witch in a temper. The brownies looked at each other in despair. How could they give up their precious bottles when they had gone through such crowds of adventures to get them? But they couldn't let the darling, brave little princess be taken off by old witch Green Eyes again. So with a sigh, they knew they would have to give up their bottles of goodness. Very well, witch Green Eyes, said Hop in a sad little voice. You shall have our 3 bottles if you will promise to let Perenelle go free, and if you will promise too not to take us 3 brownies back with you. The witch looked greedily at the 3 brightly coloured bottles. Give them to me, she begged, stretching out a hand. Perenelle, go free. Let us see the princess safely into Fairyland first, said Hop, and if you try to play us a trick and snatch us all away and our bottles too, we will smash them so that there will be no use to you. Yes, we will, said Skip and Jump, thinking Hop was very clever and very brave. Let her go into the gates of Fairyland then, said the witch, and give me the bottles afterwards. So Perenelle ran quickly around the walls till she came to where the big gates of Fairyland stood tightly closed. The brownies and the witch watched her beat at them with her little fists and saw them open. There was a sound like a glad, astonished cry, and then the gates closed. That's shut again, said Hop sadly. Quite shut, said Skip. Now give me the bottles, said the witch greedily. They gave her their precious bottles and watched her whilst she ran chuckling to the magic carpet. Then, the carpet rose quickly into the air, and soon the witch had become nothing but a tiny bird-like speck in the sky. The 3 brownies looked at each other. Our precious, precious bottles, said Hop. We can't go back to Brownie Brownie town, said Skip in a choking voice. Still, we got Perenelle back all right, said Jump, looking in all his pockets for a handkerchief. Then the croak reminded him that their good friend the dragon bird was still near them. They ran up to him and praised him and thanked him. I'm tired, he said, so tired. Let's all cuddle up here and go to sleep. Then in the morning we will think of our future plans, for I shall never leave you now. So the three forlorn little brownies cuddled together into the dragon bird and soon fell fast asleep. Their very last adventure of all. The sun went down, and still the brownies slept. Night came on, and still they lay sleeping. They were so tired out with excitement that they didn't even wake when the morning sun shone straight onto their faces. But they did wake when they heard an excited little voice shouting into their ears, and felt someone tugging and pulling at their shoulders. Wake up, oh wake up, oh please do wake up, called a voice. The brownies sat up with a jerk and looked at their awakener. It was the Princess Perenelle. Buttons and buttercups, said Hop in the deepest astonishment. What are you doing here? Perenelle was dancing and skipping about in great excitement. Oh, I've told everyone all about you and your adventures, she cried, and the King and Queen are so glad to have me back. And I've told them how you found your goodness, and how you gave it up to old Witch Green Eyes to save me. And I've told them I love you and want you to come back to Fairyland so I can play with you sometimes. And they think you're brave and good, and what do you think? What? Asked the brownies, who had been listening in amazement. There's a royal carriage coming to fetch you back to Brownie Town, cried Perenelle, hopping round with excitement. It's coming in about 2 minutes, and I wanted to ride it with you. So I've come out to tell you about it. I guess you'd be here till the morning. Good gracious, said Hop, jumping up and trying to make his clothes look as if they hadn't been slept in. But Perenelle, how lovely of you to arrange it all. I'm going to rescue you now. You see, to pay you back for rescuing me, laughed Perenelle. And the old dragon bird's coming too, of course. I told everyone how brave he was. There was such excitement among the 5 of them that they really didn't know what to do with themselves. They pulled their tunics straight, smoothed their hair, and brushed the dust from each other a score of times, whilst the dragon bird preened every feather most proudly. There's the royal carriage, shouted Hop suddenly. Sure enough, there it was, coming out from the gates of Fairyland. 8 white horses drew it, and very grand and sparkling it looked. It drew up when the princess stopped it. In she got, and in got the 3 brownies. The dragon bird walked proudly along behind. Then off set the royal carriage once more. It turned in through the gates of Fairyland, and the 3 brownies were so glad to be back again that the tears ran down their faces in big trickles. The princess was kept quite busy trying their eyes for them. The carriage drove through Elfland, where hundreds of elves were waiting to cheer the carriage as it passed. Then it went through Cuckoo Wood, where scores and scores of woodland folk cheered them and ran after the carriage, throwing roses and honeysuckle flowers. Hop, Skip and Jump were so happy that they really didn't know what to do. Fancy being back again, said Hop. Fancy being back again, echoed Skip. But just fancy, cried Jump in delight. The princess laughed. It's just as nice for me as for you, she said. I was dreadfully homesick too. At last they reached Brownie Town. Hop, Skip and Jump knew every brownie who came running after the carriage and called to their friends in joy. There's Gobbo, dear old Gobbo, cried Hop, and Pinky, cried Skip, and Pippet, and Gruffles, and Hoppity, cried Jump. The dragon bird was very happy too. He walked solemnly along behind the carriage, and everyone stared at him in wonder, for they had never seen anything like him in Fairyland before. Here's the palace, said Perenelle, as the royal carriage turned into the gates. It went up the long, twisting drive, and at last stopped at the great shining doors of the palace. And on the steps to welcome the three brownies were their majesties, the king and the queen. "Welcome," they cried. And on the steps to welcome the three brownies were their majesties, the king and queen. "Welcome," they cried. "Welcome to the brave little brownies who rescued our daughter and gave up their hard-won bottles of goodness for her safety. All your mischievous past is forgiven, for we know now that you are worthy of being brought back to Brownie Town. Welcome, too, to the brave dragon bird." "Hip hip, hurrah!" shouted everyone. "Don't let us have any more speeches," begged Perronel. "Let's get to the feast. I'm sure the brownies are hungry." The brownies were already much too excited to feel hungry, but they were always ready for a feast. And it was a feast. There were 20 different puddings, 12 different jellies, 16 different blancmanges, and 50 different sorts of cake. There was only one guest there who tried everything, and that was the dragon bird, who had really a most enormous appetite. After the feast, the king ordered 3 chairs for Hop, Skip and Jump, and 1 big chair for the dragon bird. Then he took a little key off his watch chain and gave it to Hop. "Here is the key of Crabapple Cottage," he said kindly. "I expect you would like to go and get things straight there, wouldn't you?" So off the brownies went to their dear little cottage, and except for dust, it was all just exactly as they had left it. "Isn't it lovely to be home?" cried Hop, sitting on all the chairs one after another. "Isn't it lovely to be home?" cried Skip, lying on all the beds in turn. Isn't it perfectly, absolutely lovely to be home?" cried Jump, winding up all the clocks joyfully. "We'll never be bad again," said Hop solemnly. "Never," said Skip. "Never, never, never," said Jump. So they settled down in their cottage again, and dusted and scrubbed, and made it as spick and span as could be. Everybody brought them flowers, and they put them in jugs and bowls, and made Crabapple Cottage look sweeter than it had ever done before. And once again the 3 brownies were happy, especially on Saturday afternoons, for then they always went to the palace to play with the little princess. As for the dragon bird, he was much too fond of them all to go away, so they built him a nice big cage and kept him for a pet. Every Saturday he takes them for a fine long fly in the air. So if you happen to see a big, peculiar looking bird flying quickly overhead one day, don't be alarmed. It will only be the dragon bird taking his 4 passengers for their Saturday afternoon ride. The end. Goodbye. And now the 3 brownies are happy once more, and the princess is smiling and gay. She often comes knocking at their cottage door, usually just about 4:15, and asks them to come out and play. But first they have tea, and they eat jammy bread, while they talk, just as fast as they can, of the vanishing door and the hobgoblin red, of the very wise man with his very big head, and of course of the old Saucepan Man. And Hop laughs to think of the worm they once met, who was in such a terrible hurry, and Skip says he really will never forget the time when the green railway train was upset and put everyone in a flurry. So they chatter and laugh while they finish their tea. Then they think they will go out to play, and off they all clatter as merry as can be, to take the old dragon bird out for a spree, away in the air. Hip hooray! They have a fine time in the sunny blue sky, and then come to earth with a bump. And after that Perronel calls out goodbye. Goodbye, dear old dragon bird. Thanks for the fly. And goodbye to you, Hop, Skip and Jump. listening, relaxing, and hopefully falling asleep. Thank you so much for being part of this journey. Thank you so much. There will be many more ASMR story time to come, and plenty more different ASMR videos as well in the future, in the year 2022. So keep an eye out for those. But for now, remember, if I don't see you before, I'll see you the next time I see you. Goodbye and good night. Good night. Good night. Good night. Good night. Good night. Good night.